On January 24th, 1961, America came within one switch of nuking itself. The target was not Moscow, Beijing, or any enemy city. It was Goldsboro, North Carolina, a normal American town asleep after midnight. Above it, a B-52 was carrying two Mark 39 hydrogen bombs. Each bomb was far more powerful than the weapon dropped on Hiroshima. This was the Cold War, when America kept nuclear bombers in the air around the clock. The idea was simple. If the Soviets struck first, America could still strike back. But keeping doomsday in the sky meant one mechanical failure could become history. That night, the B-52 was flying an airborne alert mission near the East Coast. At first, nothing looked unusual. Then a tanker crew noticed fuel pouring from the bomber's right wing. A leak that small could drain thousands of pounds before anyone understood it. The crew was ordered back toward Seymour Johnson Air Force Base. For a few minutes, it still looked survivable. Then the bomber began losing control. The right wing was failing under stress. At roughly 2,000 to 10,000 feet, the aircraft started breaking apart. Inside, the crew had seconds to escape. 5 men got out of the dying aircraft. 3 crew members did not survive, but the crash was only the beginning. 2 hydrogen bombs fell out of the sky over American soil. One bomb behaved almost exactly like it had been dropped in wartime. Its parachute opened. Its internal systems began moving through the firing sequence. The bomb was no longer just falling, it was preparing itself. On the ground below, families were sleeping. Nobody heard a warning siren. Nobody knew a hydrogen bomb was floating toward their fields. The second bomb fell differently. It slammed into the ground so hard it buried itself deep in mud. Parts of that bomb were recovered from a crater, but part of it remained underground. The other bomb landed almost gently, hanging under its parachute. That was the terrifying one. Investigators later found that several safety steps had been bypassed by the accident itself. The crash had shaken the weapon through parts of its normal detonation path. A weapon designed for war had mistaken a crash for a mission. And then the whole catastrophe came down to one tiny switch. One low-voltage switch refused to complete the final circuit. That switch may have saved eastern North Carolina. If it had closed, the explosion could have changed the Cold War overnight. Imagine waking up to a mushroom cloud in your own country. Imagine the government trying to explain that it bombed itself. This is why the Goldsboro incident still feels impossible. Because it was not enemy action. It was not sabotage. It was a bomber, a fuel leak, and a chain of decisions made normal by fear. Strategic Air Command believed constant readiness prevented nuclear war. But constant readiness also meant constant risk. Every flight carried the possibility of accident. Every refueling, every storm, every worn part mattered. Goldsboro was not the only nuclear accident, but it became one of the closest calls. The public did not hear the full story at first. Officials said there was no danger of a nuclear explosion. Technically, the bombs did not detonate, but technically is doing a lot of work in that sentence. Years later, declassified documents told a darker version. A Sandia safety engineer studied the accident in detail. His conclusion was blunt. The bomb did not have adequate safety for that role. In plain English, the system was too fragile for what it was being asked to do. The accident had triggered parts of the bomb's arming sequence. The final catastrophe stopped at the last barrier. For the people below, that barrier was invisible. They saw wreckage, soldiers, and strange debris in their fields. They did not see the line between normal life and nuclear disaster. That line was smaller than a household light switch. The bomb's yield is often reported around 3.8 megatons. That is not a bigger firework. It is a weapon that could erase towns and spread fallout far beyond the crater. The irony is almost unbearable. The country built the bomb to survive an attack, then nearly attacked itself by accident. No villain was required. No launch order was required. No war had to begin. A machine only had to fail in the wrong sequence. That is what makes this story so frightening. Nuclear danger is not only about leaders pressing buttons. Sometimes it is about maintenance logs. Sometimes it is about weather. Sometimes it is about a crew trying to save an aircraft already beyond saving. And sometimes it is about one switch surviving a crash. After Goldsboro, the military recovered what it could. Teams dug through farms like archaeologists of doomsday. Some contaminated and dangerous components had to be handled with extreme care. The buried section became part of local legend. For decades, the official version sounded calmer than the facts. But documents do not stay buried forever. When researchers obtained the records, the near miss became harder to dismiss. The phrase that stuck was brutally simple. One switch. One switch between a crash and a nuclear detonation. One switch between a local tragedy and a national catastrophe. One switch between history we know and history we almost had. The crew members who died were real people, not background details. The civilians below were real families, not statistics. And the people who designed the safety systems were confronting a terrifying truth. A nuclear weapon must never be allowed to mistake accident for command. Goldsboro showed how close that mistake could come. The scariest part is that nothing supernatural happened. It was all ordinary technology doing ordinary things under extreme stress. That is why nuclear systems need layers of protection. Not one layer, not two layers. Enough layers that luck is never the plan. Because at Goldsboro, luck played too large a role. The Air Force did not want panic. The public did not want to imagine an American mushroom cloud. But the truth matters because denial does not make machines safer. Every near miss is a message from the future. Goldsboro's message was clear. Do not normalize impossible risks. A country can be powerful and still be vulnerable to its own systems. A weapon can be controlled by doctrine, yet endangered by physics. A plan can look perfect until fuel starts pouring from a wing. And a normal town can become the center of history without ever asking to be. So the next time someone says nuclear weapons are only dangerous when used, remember Goldsboro. Remember the bomber, the leak, the falling bombs, and the switch. America did not nuke itself that night. But for a few minutes in 1961, the difference was almost nothing.